Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Triple Play, that podcast that offends the church. Because this week we watched the Robert Langdon Trilogy.
Written by Akiva Goldsman and David Koepp.
Directed by Ron Howard.
And released in 2006, 2009, and 2016.
We made it, I guess.
To this masterpiece of a trilogy, which I have not watched any of the movies at all.
I had watched Inferno, and I remember coming out of Inferno and being like, wow, that was really bad. I really want to forget this movie. But then never being able to forget that I had watched the movie because subsequently, I watched it shortly before going back to South Africa to visit with my family. And, you know, if my family listens to this podcast, I'm sorry, but I'm about to just out all of you. But my aunt and uncle went to go see the movie while we were in South Africa, Inferno, because it had just come out there that winter season. Winter here, summer there, so December. And they came home and they're like, wow, that was a really good movie. Like, really good. And I'm like...
Wow, you might have to bleep all of that out. That is a massive indictment of your family. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I didn't... Out of all of these, I did think Inferno was the best. I didn't think it was great, but I just thought it was okay. The other two I thought were pretty bad.
Yeah, I really think Inferno is the worst of the three, but I'm going to be honest, I think all of them are, like, blisteringly mediocre. And, like, they're not even, like, badly made, because they're actually clearly competently made. Like, there's clearly a script they're working from that makes internal sense. You know, people are actually acting. They're not, like, reining it in, giving up, like some people in some trilogies we've watched this season.
Yeah, it's not a Troll 2 situation. It's really not a Triple X State of the Union situation. It's really just a trilogy of really mediocre and boring movies, I think.
I do like what you said right before we recorded Trust Your Doctor this week, when you were like, "What? I really wish this was as bad as like State of the Union, because at least then like it would be entertaining."
Yeah, as it stands, it's mostly just boring. That's probably down to the source material, but also down to just how these movies were made and just kind of everything about them, really, I think.
Yeah, Ron Howard is really the most, like, if you want a movie made, Ron Howard will get it done for you. Do you want a great movie? Well, Ron Howard won't guarantee you that, but do you want the movie done? Ron Howard's your guy.
Yeah, what else has he directed? I'm just looking now.
Apollo 13 is his most famous movie, because that's the one that wins him his Best Director Oscar. He came in and finished Solo recently. After they kicked off, what's their names?
Yeah, he wrote A Beautiful Mind, that Russell Crowe movie. I don't know why I know.
Yeah, he directed A Beautiful Mind.
Or directed, sorry, not wrote.
Frost Nixon, In the Heart of the Sea. No, he's done a lot of movies and acting too. He acted in American Graffiti, the George Lucas's project. But he's like directed a lot of projects. Many of them like very pedestrian, like studio movies, basically just like studio wants the movie done and Ron Howard's there to finish it up. He's not gonna be flashy. He's not gonna be super stylized, but he'll get it done. Unless it's Inferno, when he'll become really surreal for some reason. Yeah, it got
a little surreal, but that was like it was Langdon's head trauma too, so it was contextualized in the story.
Sure.
And it was only for like the first.
He also directed the Jim Carrey How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Hey. Well, before we get into really how these were devised as a movie trilogy, we have to talk about how they were devised as books by Dan Brown.
Now, I've never read any of the books. Have you read the books?
Nope.
So I've heard the books are like, plot-wise, they're at least decent. Dan Brown's done his work, but I've heard the like actual writing quality of the books is really, really bad.
I imagine, and this is just me conjecturing here, I guess. I imagine they're like very Clancy-esque in style, where everything is just really dry and just stated exactly, almost Ron Howard-esque, but like in writing form, where it's sort of just a very boring style and everything's plain. That's Clancy, and I get like that sort of Clancy vibe from Dan Brown.
Sure.
His stories and sort of his also God, who was the guy who wrote the Bourne books?
Oh.
I forget his name.
Shoot.
But he's in that mold. He's in that mold. For
Robert
sure.
Ludlum.
Yes, him. It's sort of these, I don't know, thrillers, conspiracy stories with spies and such.
I'm just reading an excerpt from DaVinci Code. Yeah, I mean, it's not actually as bad as I had heard it was. It's pretty much exactly as you described it, which is also pretty much exactly how I write, exactly straightforward. Langdon still felt fuzzy. A visitor? His eyes focused now on a crumpled flyer on his bedside table. Langdon groaned. Tonight's lecture, a slideshow about pagan symbolism hidden in the stones of Chartres Cathedral, had probably ruffled some conservative feathers in the audience. Most likely some religious scholar had trailed him home to pick a fight. There we go. There's your excerpt.
Yeah, just one of those books that's like, it's not like poorly written, but it's kind of a slog to get through just because of how, I don't know, dry and flatly stated everything is. In my opinion.
You need a vacation, Robert.
But sure, so he's sort of in that mold, I guess, Dan Brown, that is.
Yeah.
But his shtick, I guess, at least based on these movies, is religion.
Yeah, I mean, Inferno deals with religion less than the other two by a vast margin.
It still has to do with, like, yeah, maybe it's not religion explicitly, although sometimes it is. Maybe it's more like these sort of Renaissance, artworks and, people uncovering clues in, like, museums and such.
Yeah, I mean, it's the, like, scavenger hunt across a city in 24 hours. It's the same vibe. But Inferno definitely just deals with, like... I don't think the themes are even religious. I think the only religious aspect of it, in my opinion, is the fact that, like, a painting of Dante's Inferno is what sets the whole thing off.
Yeah, I mean, it's more even, like... I wouldn't go as far as saying like it is, but it's like it's closer to like an eco-drama or something, like, right? Because the villain is sort of this eco-terrorist guy.
I do think Inferno has the best villain of the three. He is the most interesting villain.
Yeah, for
Bertrand Zobrist. And it's a really interesting conceit having the movie open with him just killing himself, so he's dead before the plot of the movie happens. But we'll get there. So, Dan Brown's book Angels and Demons came out, and it didn't make a big splash. People were like, oh, it's just another book. It's another, like, John Grisham-esque book. and then DaVinci Code came out, and it was a huge success. It was massive.
Yeah, I even remember this. I mean, we were obviously kids at the time, but I even remember, like, the big splash of the book, not even the movie, but I remember the book being, like, a big deal.
Yeah, no, DaVinci Code was huge. Huge. Mm-hmm. Why? I don't know. It was just that perfect storm of, like, a subject people were interested in being released at the perfect time.
Yeah, it was sort of a lightning in a bottle moment. Which, in the wake of that, Dan Brown, now massively famous, I guess, got the movie deal. Right. And I believe so. Okay, Sony / Columbia, who were the production companies behind the movie, distributed it and all that. I believe that they gave him this deal for both both Angels and Demons and the DaVinci Code at the same time.
I believe so. I believe they bought the rights to both of them. Buying the rights doesn't guarantee that they're going to make the movies, but they bought the rights to both of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And obviously they went for the DaVinci Code first, just riding that wave.
Yeah, because it's way bigger. It's a way bigger movie.
Yeah.
So,
Also is more, I wouldn't, okay, we can get into this, but I wouldn't, I think they get better. I think DaVinci Code is probably the worst one, but it has like a more interesting premise, you know? Like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. We'll definitely get into this, but I definitely like Angels and Demons less than the Da Vinci Code because of certain pacing issues I have with the problems that I have with the movie. But I'll talk about those when we're talking about Angels and Demons. Da Vinci Code, though, has the opposite problem of Angels and Demons, which is that it just feels slow as hell. I have a note here. Where is it? Oh my god, how is there still an hour left in this movie?
Yeah, it's like a 2.5 hour movie that feels 5 hours long. And I don't know if you got this impression throughout all three movies, actually, but I definitely did where, and I guess this is down to Dan Brown, where it's like 30 minutes before the end of each movie, it felt like the plot was just like done. Like things just stagnated. But then there was still more to go. Like you realized like everything felt resolved, yet you realized like, oh my god, like they didn't really actually resolve like this big thing that's still kind of lingering. That was in all three of them for me at least.
I mean, the movies are very literary-esque in that they have a sort of a coda, an epilogue almost, a scene that
Yeah.
happens after the conclusion of the main plot. In the first one, it's Langdon realizing that Mary Magdalene's grave is underneath the Louvre. In the second one, it's them suddenly realizing that Ewan McGregor's character was the mastermind all along, right before he's about to become the Pope.
Yeah, and sort of it's they definitely adopt this sort of not style of storytelling, but like yeah, I don't pacing, I guess, that you see more in books and that I think people accept more in books. Although I mean, you just don't see it a lot in movies.
I
So
think, I don't know if I'd use the word pacing. I think I'd use the word structure.
yeah, structure. Because I mean, structurally, movies are more akin to short stories, in my opinion, than like full novels. Even though you often get like the novel adapted as the movie. So
You're just not watching enough of those 3 hour to 4 hour epics that I've been watching. I mean, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo is very literary as well. To give an example of an actually good movie that does this well, because in the first act, two kind of separate plot threads are set up, and then the second act of the movie wraps up the plot thread that you think is kind of the main point of the movie. But then the third act is like reminds you like, oh yeah, there was a parallel plot thread that was running through the whole movie that needs to be wrapped up as well. And the movie feels like it could end at the end of the second act, but then suddenly you're like, oh wait, but what about all those unresolved questions about the other plot thread? And then you get the third
to be
act.
continued.
To be continued. Movie 2.
Yeah, so that's where these movies are at. They did go to a lot of the actual locations. So obviously, these are the first one at least is taking place a lot in Paris and then also in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And they did go to these locations for most of them.
Yeah, I read that it was pretty rare for a movie to film in Paris.
Probably because it's just really damn expensive, I would assume.
Yeah, I think they got a bit of a pass because it was such a big movie. Wow, just looking at the poster for Da Vinci Code, and that doesn't even look like Tom Hanks on the poster.
Yeah, Tom Hanks, like, people are more used to seeing Tom Hanks with the haircut that he has in Angels and Demons and Inferno, whereas in Da Vinci Code, he has, like, it's a little longer and it's, like, slicked back, and
He's kind of got the Farquad going on. Almost.
I guess, yeah. Speaking of the posters for all three of these are very uninteresting, especially the Da Vinci Code. Like, that one is just, wow, I can't believe that's the poster for it.
Well, posters nowadays have been really boring for years. It's a hot take.
I'm not too bothered by it, though, so whatever.
Yeah, well, speaking
It's
of Tom Hanks, apparently not a lot of people see Tom Hanks as Robert Langdon because he's not like the Robert Langdon in the books.
Yeah, again, the reason why I kind of relate this to sort of the Clancy-esque, I guess that's a thing, is like the main character kind of feels like the sort of Jack Ryan or even Indiana Jones-esque guy. where he's this professor, but he goes on these adventures and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend who read the books who literally said to me that Tom Hanks is not Robert Langdon, that Robert Langdon is supposed to be like Harrison Ford.
Right, which obviously Harrison Ford was Indiana Jones, and he played Jack Ryan at least once. I think maybe he did more than one. I don't know. At least once, though.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Tom Clancy fan. I don't know why I'm making it out like I am, but I'm like
Keon, confirmed Tom Clancy fan. You heard it here on the podcast first, folks. Keon is out of himself as an avid reader of Tom Clancy.
Actually, you just heard the opposite of that, but all right, like whatever, you want to just take this in another direction, sure.
Look, for all the people who skip the first 16 minutes and 15 seconds of the podcast, they'll think I'm telling the truth.
All right, why not?
I know there are people out there who do that. Statistically speaking, there has to be at least one in the world.
He just skips the first 16 and a half minutes of every podcast.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, so Tom Hanks, they cast him as Robert Langdon. I tried to find out why, could not find a single source that explained why.
No, neither could I.
I guess they just liked Tom. I guess Ron Howard was just like, Tom Hanks is who I want in this movie. And they were like, okay, sure, we'll get Tom Hanks.
It was almost, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it was almost to the detriment of the movie having such a famous actor in the lead role. Especially one like Tom Hanks, which, I mean, not only does he not really fit the character in my and many people's opinion, it's just like his notoriety, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean, is like, you just look at him and you're like, okay, I'm watching Tom Hanks. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
You're on your own. I mean, I get what you're saying. Sometimes, like, if an actor is not really pulling an acting performance, I'll be like, I'm not seeing the actor here. I'm just seeing X actor. But I never really felt like that with these movies, so...
I mean, it's whatever. Least of these movies' problems, I think, and worries. So. Hey.
Least of the movie's woes.
Yeah. Anyway, they also, in terms of filming location, not to bounce back to that, I did want to mention that they utilized Pinewood Studios in the UK, which is a pretty famous location.
Not yeah, I mean, location, pretty much every British movie is filmed at Pinewood Studios. You'd be hard-pressed to... Okay, every notable British movie was filmed at Pinewood Studios. Be hard-pressed to find one that wasn't.
So it came out. I also read that right before it came out, David Koepp rewrote a lot of it. Because the first one, I believe, only has the credit for Akiva Goldsman.
Yes. It's a weird kind of passing of the baton because the second one is then credited to both of them and the third one is only credited to David Koepp.
Yeah, Akiva Goldsman, actually, I wasn't familiar with his name, but I looked him up and he's actually written a lot of pretty famous things, I guess. Maybe not necessarily
not a
good.
lot of really great things, though, because he's written things like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Yeah, he wrote A Time to Kill, which is an okay movie, I guess. He wrote I Am Legend. He wrote Writer's Tale. That's and directed it as well. Wow.
Great. He also created the story for Transformers: The Last Knight, so...
Hell yeah.
So, great. He's been doing a lot of work on Star Trek recently.
Anyway, like we were saying, the first one came out and it made $760 million against a budget of $125 million.
Yeah, it made bank, basically. Huge bank.
That was probably mostly just on the name recognition and hype, though, because the reception of this movie was not good.
Yeah. I mean... It didn't help that the church basically disowned it immediately.
Yeah, we should talk about that because I actually remember this as well. I mean, from when we were kids, it was like the Catholic Church railing against the DaVinci Code.
Yeah, because the DaVinci Code it, like implies, or like a key plot point of the movie is that Jesus had a child with Mary Magdalene.
Right. And let's just say this right away. As soon as they reveal that plot point or that that's going to be a thing, you instantly know that it's what's her name? I can't even remember her name because I just didn't care.
Sophie.
Sophie, you instantly know. It's not even a couple like maybe oh yeah, it could be her. No, it's immediate. It's instant. Just neurons firing in your brain.
Well, again, while I was watching this, and I made a note of it, that the least believable part of this whole movie is not that Jesus had a kid. It's not that Jesus and Mary were married secretly and that she was pregnant while he was crucified. It's not that there's a secret order of people dedicated to keeping the secret that Jesus had a kid. It's not that the Holy Grail is actually Jesus' bloodline. It's that somehow, over thousands of years, Jesus' bloodline terminates at this one single living descendant. One single person just somehow never branched out. I guess just like every single chain in this line had a single child to make sure that the chain was only a single person all the way down.
Yeah, that is pretty funny when you put it that way. I didn't really care though. I mean, mostly because I didn't really care about the movie itself, but it was just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, eh.
I just thought it was hilarious because, like, really, like your entire plot hinges on this one thing, and everything else is almost believable based on the evidence you point out that may or may not be true. I don't know. I didn't verify all of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this,
There's a lot of. I'm sure we'll get into this as we get further into 2 and 3, but there's a lot of like, and this is okay. I don't want to be that guy who comes out here and is like, well, the facts were wrong in the movie, so it sucks. But there's a lot of like wrong stuff in these movies. Not only the conspiracy stuff. Forget that for a second. There's a lot of other weird stuff too.
there is an extensive NBC News article just about like everything in the DaVinci Code that's real and everything that's not.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the appeal of talking about that stuff, and I'm sure we're going to as well, but at the same time, I kind of want to preface it by saying, like, I mean, who cares at the end of the day? Like, it's a movie. Who cares if the plot points aren't real? You know, whatever.
I think people care because people believe the movie is like real life. I think people care because, and I think the movie doesn't make an effort to distance itself from real life either.
Yeah, there's this thing in these movies, and it's not only these, it's many stories, many movies, and just many stories in general, where it's like the setting feels a little grounded. So when those, I guess unreal, I guess you could say, things do come into play, you're like, wait a minute, what? Which is really, I mean, is really sort of a backwards way of thinking, in my opinion, right? Because like, obviously you need to, I mean, you need to take it as face value. Those things are part of the movie when you can't deny them. So just because they come later doesn't mean they have any lesser values. But I don't know, whatever. I see the appeal of like of pointing out the inconsistencies though, because they are pretty damn funny. Not inconsistencies, but like unreal things, like how there's an inscription from, I'm just going to get ahead of myself here. This is actually funny to me. There's like inscriptions from like the 1300s and they're written in modern American English. Like, are you for real?
I mean, my note during this movie was like, okay, I guess you just expect that Leonardo like figured all of this out and then just, I don't know, instead of telling people, just hit a bunch of clues in his paintings. Exactly. For like what purpose? Like for what purpose? To what end?
For fun.
Well, like, all right, cool, I guess.
That's not even, I don't know. I feel like if these movies were made more interesting, maybe visually, then all of that would have come together perhaps better. Or even if they were like, I don't know, this might be an unpopular thing to say or might be just a wrong thing to say. I have no idea. But like, if these movies were more tonally like playful and funny, I feel like they would work out like a lot smoother. Because they're going through like these puzzles and clues, but they're doing it as if it's the most serious thing in the world, which I get. There's people out to kill them, and it is a serious thing for the characters, but like, you're playing games like with dead artists, and like you're playing these puzzles and stuff, and in a way there's something funny about that to me.
I mean, I guess it's the juxtaposition between them, like literally doing a scavenger hunt, and the fact that it's like a global conspiracy involving like the oldest cover up in
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now that I say that out loud, like the DaVinci Code not played straight sounds like the actual worst thing ever, but hey, you know what? Like, I don't know. Maybe it would be more interesting.
I mean, maybe. I don't think it would be any better than what we've got, though.
When did those National Treasure movies come out? Was that after this? National Treasure? I would assume
so.
that it is.
I mean, I think so.
I'm just looking it up right now. Film series. Oh, it's Disney. I didn't know that. Not surprised though.
You didn't know Disney made National Treasure?
No. Well, the first one was 2004, and the second one was 2007. So I'm sure that was just riding the hype wave of the book, starring Nick Cage.
Well, they're allegedly making a third one, so
Yeah,
look, National Treasure is at least fun. Okay,
that's what I mean. Is like there should be this sense of like of fun spiritedness in these movies that is absent to me.
and the first one takes it very seriously that like this revelation of a descendant of Jesus will shatter the religion to its core.
Yeah, I mean they're all dead serious.
Yeah, but Inferno is more fantastic than the other two because like in Inferno the scavenger hunt the on the trail of was constructed in
Right.
modern day to hide something that someone is doing, whereas in the other two it's like necessary to use these historical treasure hunts to find things that people who died 500 years ago did.
Inferno does have that larger sense of like a heightened reality. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it more, because it maybe comes closer to what I perhaps envisioned that these would be. Which isn't to say that like
It comes closest to being more of a like conspiracy thriller rather than a historical thriller.
yeah,
Historical based thriller, I should
which
say.
isn't to say that like I actually really dislike the thing that a lot of people have where it's like if you go into a movie and you walk out of it and you're like, well, that wasn't what I was expecting. That sucks. Like, come on, can't you have at least a bit of an open mind? You know, I mean, obviously judge on the quality, but it's like, you know, if you just go in judging everything based on what you think it'll be, you're not going to have a good time with most stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, sure, I agree.
I guess we're kind of off topic. I mean, we're just talking broadly here instead of actually about the movies, but maybe there's a reason for that.
I wonder why.
Well, the second one I read, unless you had anything else on the first, was supposed to originally come out in 2008, but was delayed due to a strike.
Yeah, the Writers Guild of America strike. I remember this strike only because it affected a lot of movies. A lot of movies that came out in that year/era got either screwed over or massively rewritten due to the strike.
Yeah, doesn't the Writers Guild of America go on strike like a lot, but just not like that, like not lengthy? I don't know. Yeah, they strike
Yeah.
like we're just gonna strike for like a weekend type thing. Yeah,
Yeah. Sure.
I'll look some
Yes.
stuff up about that and see if I can verify it and put it in the show notes. What is weird about the second one though is that Angels and Demons is the first book, but the second movie that doesn't really affect the story, I believe, because they are just these sort of self-contained things. But there are little nods in the second one to the first one having already happened, which I would assume were added, unless the books are achronological, which I don't think they are.
No, they rewrote the second one to make it the second one, so that it was actually the second one. I think what actually affected the second one more than doing it out of order was the second one has a core plot element revolving around the papacy and who's going to be the next pope. And in the book, apparently, like that draws very little media attention, is basically like ignored by the population at large. But the filmmakers and Ron Howard specifically pretty much was like, that's not believable anymore, because the in 2005 the election of Pope John Paul was a really big deal.
And I remember just personally, anecdotally, is like every time there was a new pope, it was actually like a big deal.
Yeah, I think 2005 was the first one that was true for.
Huh? I wonder why.
I tried looking it up, and I didn't see any reason specifically why, except just the advent of like communications technology making it easier for
Oh
more people
man,
to
that's
follow
boring.
it.
I thought it was going to be some like big scandal. I guess that's why we have
No,
movies like Angels and Demons. Yeah.
tell us the
Well, when it
scandal.
comes to plot stuff like this, and the second half of Angels and Demons, like beats the heck out of me. Like I was checked out halfway through, pretty much. I will say that personally, I liked the setup of Angels and Demons more than the DaVinci Code. Yeah, I just enjoyed the setup where he had to find these sort of four murders that were about to happen.
There's a higher sense of there's higher stakes in the second one because other people are going to die, and not just Langdon's not just trying to save his own skin like in the first one.
Right, and there is a higher sense of urgency too. I think it comes across on screen, and Brian Grazer, the producer, even acknowledged that the DaVinci Code was very still, didn't have much urgency much of the time, and they wanted to add scenes or like parts. They wanted to have this one be more in motion. They wanted Langdon to be on the move, to run around a lot and stuff, and they succeeded in that. I mean, it didn't improve the quality, I don't think, but they definitely succeeded in doing that.
Yeah, as Mark Kermode said so succinctly, just basically can't improve on this at all. In his review of Angels and Demons, quote, whereas the original movie featured Hanks standing around in darkened rooms explaining the plot to anyone who was still awake, the second salvo cranks up the action by having Tom explain the plot while running, a major breakthrough. And you just can't say it better than that. You just
Yeah.
can't say it better than that. The second one also, like, I don't know. I liked the second one. Actually, looking back on it, I probably liked the second one the least, if only because of the, like, just complete asinine way it treats physicists in the whole movie, and just, like, everything it gets wrong about physics, Dan Brown clearly did so much research trying to get all the religious stuff right. Like, he couldn't do an extra, like, one day to make sure that like, the physics was right. I mean, the lead character, who's not Langdon, what's
no
her
idea.
name? Don't remember her name. Victoria, like, keeps calling it the God particle, and like not one serious physicist really likes calling, like, nobody calls it the God particle, specifically because of the implications with like religion, and also because that's a complete misnomer, because the particle they're looking for, the Higgs boson, is not the God particle. Like, the idea of a quote God particle is like something created by non-physicists. So like, if you're gonna have a physicist character, you could at least, like, I don't know, make them a little accurate to life. Have the plebs call it the God particle, but like no physicists are gonna call it the God particle.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, is like these movies do present this like heightened reality in a way. Where it's like,
Yeah, I mean,
and
kind of. I mean, the second one went so far as to not only anger the church, but they at least like got on CERN's radar, because CERN like put up a whole page just on like what antimatter is, basically also saying like we don't produce antimatter, and we like don't have the capability of doing so. No one really does. I mean, we produce antiprotons as a byproduct of our collisions, but like,
yeah, I mean,
none of this is possible with the collider at CERN. Like this,
Yeah.
the entire idea
As far as
here
they want us
is
to know.
wrong.
Okay, yeah. Look, I could write one of these things. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, you probably could. I mean, you could. Would you? Probably not, but you could.
Yeah, I mean, I never was of the type to like really get up in arms over any wrong details. I mean, it's not even only the science things. It's like the art history. Actually, I think that's probably one of the things that's probably closest to being right in these movies, so I wouldn't know. But like, yeah, the linguistic stuff is like totally wrong, and whenever they touch on it, and it's just like, yeah, doesn't.
I only get up in arms in it when the thing that's wrong is the reason why the plot is happening. So, and only when it's something I actually care about, like physics. It's only a nuisance when the like entire plot of the movie hinges on like some misunderstanding of like how physics or physicists work. Like in this one, like the whole terrorist attack about the God particle only exists because everybody thinks that they're trying to like prove the existence of like, or prove the superiority of science over religion because they call it the God particle, when like, again, no scientist would actually do that.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, that's actually that actually what you're saying was in the movie sort of this indictment against the church in a way, because like they actually weren't trying to do that, but it's like these religious dudes in the Vatican who are like, hey man, like our profession is in danger and we need to do something about it.
It's not even that, because the movie doesn't even get that far for me, because by the end of it you find out actually the God particle was just a complete diversion, that like none of that was even the thing that they cared about, that all of this was just some like grand Moriarty-esque scheme put together by Patrick McKenna to like become Pope, I guess.
Yeah, well,
like, I don't even know what his end goal was at the end of the movie.
I was so checked out like by that point, honestly. And all three of these movies have this sort of scene near the end, not too near the end, but maybe like 30 minutes away from the end, where you see a scene again from another perspective and it puts the rest of the movie into perspective. And this one handled it.
Except Angels and Demons doesn't even do that. Like it just reveals that McKenna was behind the whole thing. You're like, wow. But like, to what end? Like, what was he trying to do? And then he kills himself before you can like.
Another thing, I guess, just to cap off this discussion of like physicists, and I guess also Langdon being a symbologist and whatnot, and all the, obviously agents in the third one and all that stuff, is like the characters in these movies have no character besides their job. Like they're not even one-dimensional. They have almost no dimension to them.
They try to give Langdon a dimension in the third one, which we'll get to. But I agree. Yeah, no one's really got a character outside of like what they have to do to serve the plot. Like that is the character. Like, oh, I've got to be a symbologist. Yeah. That's me. I'm a symbologist.
Yeah, the third one I felt was actually most successful in, which isn't saying much, but it's like, the what's her name, Sienna, had something to her at least. She had a goal. She had like a personal want. She had a stake in all of this. So there was something to her. And same with the villain.
Yeah, but I kind of felt that was undermined by the revelation that she was in love with the guy. Like he was the boyfriend that she was in love with the whole time. So like, then it was like, well, how much of this is what she believes and how much of it is just like her duty to her now deceased.
Yeah, exactly. She's obviously been sort of indoctrinated, I guess, is maybe not the most apt word to use in a film trilogy about doctrine, but hey.
I think my biggest problem with the second one is that there's like the pacing is so whack. Like the whole movie is 110% speed until the final 30 minutes, and then it's like, and now that we've finished the main plot, let us plod through the final act as slow as possible. Like DaVinci Code and Inferno, say what you will about them. At least they have moments of high intensity, and then they give you a breather, and they like slow down for a second, and then they're back up. You know, there's some thought put into it. Angels and Demons is like from moment one, like from the first scene, guy shows up, is like, Robert, I need you to help. 4 people are gonna die, 1 on the hour for the next 4 hours. We need to go now
before the first murder.
And you're like, okay, here we go.
I guess the sun sets in Italy really late because it's like 8:30, and they're running around. They're like, the next murder is going to happen at 8:45, and it's broad daylight. I guess. I don't know. Is Italy north of where we are? It has to be. It's probably on par with maybe like the northeast of the U.S. or even farther north. I don't know.
Vatican City
just look
latitude.
Up world map.
It's 41.9 degrees north.
Yeah, it looks like it's about on par with like the northeast of the U.S. a little farther north.
It's at 49. Los Angeles is at 34.
Yeah, we're obviously
north,
south of that because we're in Southern California. I only say that because, like, I saw someone online, they were British, and they're like, why does every character in American high school movies wake up, like, in broad daylight? Do they just, like, not give themselves time to get ready for school? And I almost responded saying, you know, like, the sun rises at, like, between 6 and 7 in the U.S., right? But I didn't say anything.
Yeah, the sun rises, I mean... Here it rises at like 5 during daylight savings time, and sets at 5, which is
not
great.
During daylight savings time, or like midsummer. It'll be like around 5 to like, I don't know, 7.
In the summer, it'll set by 6:45, 7. I mean, it still sets pretty early here, like relative.
Yeah, we're pretty close to the equator, relatively, so not really too much variance. But it was like when I went to England in the winter, it was like, man, it didn't rise until like 9. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this whatsoever.
So the second one comes out, and they were going to adapt the third book, The Lost Symbol, and they hacked away at it for a while, and they had a script. According to Ron Howard, they had multiple scripts, in fact. But then they were like, nah, you know, it's too similar to like DaVinci Code. Like it's too similar in the themes. So we're just not going to do it. And that was about the same time when they decided not to do it. That was about 2013, which is when Inferno, the book, was released. And they're like, we'll do Inferno instead. So, you know, really cashing in on the hype train, you know, DaVinci Code, 3 years, Angels and Demons, and then just 7 years to Inferno, you know, just riding that gravy train right when it's hot, you know, striking while the iron is ice cold.
Glad to see that making a comeback, that phrase. It's...
Apparently they're turning The Lost Symbol into a TV show.
Woo! Yeah! Okay.
I can't even tell
supposed to be like the one guy who's excited. Like the crowd is just crickets, and there's one guy who's like, "Yes, yes."
I knew it.
It still made money though. I'm just looking now. $75 million budget to $220 million box office.
Yeah. I mean, box office disappointment though. Not what they expected. You know, they were really expecting that hype train to continue 7 years.
10 years since the first one. With a newly, even further aged Tom Hanks as the lead character.
No, but see, that kind of works because they basically put him out of commission the instant the movie starts with the whole mind loss thing.
Yeah, and he is just sort of a pawn in their games too. So,
right. So, yeah, Inferno. Like I said, I remember seeing it, I remember watching it, being like, yeah, you know, I feel like I missed nothing by not watching the first 2 movies in this trilogy.
Yeah, you don't really have to watch them in order or any of the other ones. They are just kind of these standalone things.
The third one is the one with the most, to me, like confusing web of conspiracy because there are so many players in the game. Like there are so many players in the game in Inferno.
I actually,
you're like, who's on what side?
that's part of the reason I think why I enjoyed it more is like the other two, they like tiptoed that line and they never really crossed it, and it was just weird and like whack, and I just didn't care. And then Inferno was just like, yeah, we're just going all out, we're going ham on this. There's so many different betrayals, so many different literal and metaphorical backstabs throughout the movie that it's just amazing.
My favorite part of the third one is how the WHO just like is just like a paramilitary organization, I guess.
Yeah.
They've got like troops on the ground. Like,
Yeah, that was amazing. Like, see, that's what I mean when I say I don't mind this sort of heightened reality or wrong things. It's like sometimes you get the WHO with assault weapons and riot shields.
no, my favorite moment in the whole trilogy is when the you see a bunch of like armed soldiers, I guess, run up to Sienna's door and they kick it down, and you're like, okay, who are they? And I just go, WHO, open up. And you're like, wait, what?
It does, like, yeah, it is funny. It does kind of make sense since the villain is like an eco villain. His plan is way more compelling and less religion based. I think those two go hand in hand than any of the other villains from the other movies. So he basically wants to reduce the population of the world using a virus because he says, within the next however many 30 or 40 years, the population will be unsustainable, and he's right.
Yeah, I mean, he's right on that. He's just kind of, and Langdon even says this, his ideas are compelling. His execution, not so much.
Yeah, his literal execution of like half the world's population with the virus.
Well, so Inferno is the one that got the most pushback for the changes it made to the book. And now I haven't read the book, but I do know the changes that it made to the book. And in my opinion, the changes sound like they were for the worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you read the differences with the book.
Not at all.
Okay, well, so basically in the book, Zobrist's plan is not to release a virus that kills half the population, but instead sterilizes 50% of the population. So not killing them, but preventing the population from growing anymore and moving forward, basically.
Yep.
Which is a more compelling, to me, solution to the problem, because it doesn't kill people to solve the problem, because the problem with killing people to solve the problem is that the population will just grow again. Whereas with the sterilization, the population can't grow anymore from those people. Anyway, also in the book, the ending of the book is completely different from the movie, because in the book, at the end of the book, it goes all Watchmen on them, and it's just like, it's just revealed at the end, Langdon finds out that Zobrist had already enacted the entire plan, and the virus was already released, like, by the time that Zobrist died, and that there's nothing they can do. Like, 50% of the population is already sterile before the plot of the book even took place, and everything was for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder why they changed those. Those seem like pretty compelling things to keep in, So I wonder what the thought process was behind changing all of those.
I mean, if I put on my directorial hat for a minute, not that I've made any movies, obviously, my guess would be that they didn't think audiences would like the bleakness of the ending. It works in Watchmen, which is like the entire movie and graphic novel are very like depressing the entire way through. So a very downbeat ending is on brand, so to speak. Whereas I guess the idea was that audiences would reject that in this movie. But I don't know. I'm just theorizing.
Yeah, I mean, this one also, like the other two, had a pretty negative reception, so obviously audiences were not receptive to what they actually did put in either.
Well, the ending is just like so... They're running around the cistern, like trying to get a bag. Like this super genius who devised this entire like scheme. His virus release plan was like a plastic bag.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I can't know I'm saying this, but it's almost like 2001 Space Odyssey-esque, where it's like, yeah, there's this he has, like you said, he has this entire scheme. It's this entire thing. It's this plot, and then at the end, they're just like fighting each other, pushing each other, trying to drown each other for a damn bag. That said, that part of the movie was where I started like not caring anymore. I mean, there was an element to this one, even though I did kind of like Inferno. There was an element to it of the other ones where I was just like, I just don't care about anything in the movie.
Yeah, they never really give you a good reason to care.
No, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about with the characters before. You know, they really are just their jobs. Even Robert Langdon is pretty much mostly just his entire character is his job. And you have no reason to be invested in any of these people, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's kind of impressive, like how non-dimensional all the characters are. It's incredible, almost. Also, I love in Angels and Demons, like Stellan Skarsgård plays this the chief of police, I guess, for the Vatican City, and you really think he's going to be the villain, and they just unceremoniously kill him off 2/3 of the way through the movie, and then it's revealed he's not the villain, and just nobody goes, shoot, like, damn, maybe we shouldn't have killed him. Everyone just, like, doesn't even mention it again. He just dies, and just no one ever talks about it again. Like, that's how important he was to everyone, I guess.
Yeah, you know, in DaVinci Code world, in DaVinci Code land, life is pretty dang cheap.
Yeah, I mean, in DaVinci Code 2 has that aspect of, like, there are so many players in the game by the end of the movie because, like, turns out Ian McKellen's character betrayed the bishop who betrayed the cop who betrayed, like what is going on?
I think that's honestly all I had to say about these. I would not recommend watching these movies even if you were bored and had nothing else to do.
No, but I do think, you know, in some weird way they work as a trilogy, if only because they're all equally bad and confusing. Look, they're all very much like... They are the same plot. Just change the players in the game, and the plot is the same.
Yeah, they're very structurally similar.
Which, hey, I guess, like, if you really like DaVinci Code and you want, like, more of the same...
You're in luck, because there's 2 more of them.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I'd say they work as a trilogy just fine. Fine.
Even though, like, it is kind of hilarious how the third one, taking place 7 years after the second one, introduces a lot of, like, plot anachronisms, like the use of Google in the third one. That, like, would have been really useful for the other 2, and the question of, like, when do these all take place relative to each other? Like, what year? Like, how much time passes between DaVinci Code and Angels and Demons? Is it present day? Is it, like, the next day he finishes... he finds Mary Magdalene's tomb, and the next day the papacy is like, hey, we need your help.
It's that opening scene where he's in the pool. He's just trying to relax and let off steam after this, like, world-changing event that he's been through. And the guy just shows up and he's like, so we need your help in Italy.
They give him the book at the end of Angels and Demons so he can finish his own book, and as he's leaving the building, like, they knock him out for Inferno, and, like... Each of these movies takes place over the course of, like, 24 hours, 48 at most.
Yeah.
So. Actually, that's the most unbelievable thing, is them flying back and forth between, like, England and... between London and Paris in the first one, and it all still somehow being, like, 24 hours.
It's not like... I would imagine that that's, like, a 5 or 6 hour flight, if that. Maybe it's even, like... 2 to 3.
Probably shorter than that.
Yeah, it's maybe like 2 to 3, or even shorter, possibly. I don't know.
Let's just Google it. How long does it take to fly from London to Paris? Oh, wow, it's only an hour and a half.
Oh, damn.
That'd be like flying from LA to San Francisco, basically. A little bit further than that, maybe LA to Seattle. LA to San Fran is 1 hour, so...
Dang. Yeah, pretty close. I mean, there is that train. I believe
Yeah,
that's
that
the
goes under
tunnel.
the English Channel.
Yeah, I
The
believe
channel.
that's what it's called.
The
Yeah, yeah.
channel.
It's the Channel Tunnel, the English Channel Tunnel. I
Great.
believe it's from Paris to London.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, well, I'm just glad to have put these movies behind us in
I
the
mean,
rear view.
we made ourselves watch them, but yeah, I'm glad too.
Yeah, but the more movies I've seen, the more legitimate my claims of what good movies and bad movies are. See, this is all big brain.
Yeah, exactly. The more bad movies you have under your belt, the more time you accumulate watching movies you don't enjoy, the more credibility you have, and that's what really matters.
Complete nonsensical argument, but
But I buy it.
so yeah, and that also brings us to the end of this season,
Right, because
of Triple
there's
Play.
no real expanded universe stuff for this, I guess.
Except the books themselves.
Yeah, which really, if you want to take it that far, the movies are really the expanded universe because the books came first. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess. There's a fifth book now as well, Origin, that came out in 2017. I don't know if it's any good.
probably not. What? Who said that?
Maybe I'll read it. No, I won't. No, I won't.
Well, I think this is
Yeah.
something we've been both wanting to reveal for the last couple of minutes. So,
Yeah.
obviously, this is the end of this season. Thanks for sticking around if you have, or if you just listened to this one, or if you didn't listen to this one, you're not even listening to this. So, but thanks anyway.
Yeah, thanks for making it this far. We're here to tell you Triple Play is cancelled. The viewership was too low.
This is on you, people. No, it's not canceled. We're still doing this.
Well, if we had a network above us, or if we were sane, any television show that looked at our viewership numbers of like Triple Play compared to the rest of our shows would be like, cancel Triple Play, cancel it.
But not us.
But
No.
we're not. Yeah, not us for some reason. Not us. So we've already prepared a tentative list of what trilogies we want to cover next season. And this season we kind of pushed the boundaries of what would constitute a Triple Play episode, trying out a bit of a new format. And next season, I think we're pushing that a little further. We're gonna push it until it breaks. Every season, we're gonna push it a little further until either the format just completely explodes in our face, or we hit upon something that's so massively great that you can't help but listen to us.
Yeah.
It's the only two options. It's complete black and white.
Yeah, so should I go ahead and reveal the 6 trilogies? Is that...
Yeah,
I guess,
hit them with
correct?
us. Hit us with them. God, we're falling apart at the seams. Hit us with them, Keon, since you've got the list and I don't.
All right, well, first up, we've got the Cornetto Trilogy, which is, God,
Edgar Wright's movies, Shaun of the Dead, The Hot Fuzz, and At World's End.
Yep, and after that, we've got the animated Godzilla trilogy, which just came out in the past couple of years. That's our animated one for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the Naked Gun trilogy, the Addams Family trilogy. Then we're switching up a little. We're doing 3 M. Night Shyamalan movies. Not necessarily a trilogy, but apparently there's something in the second and third ones that make it so, or so I've heard, I guess. Which is Unbreakable, Split, and Glass.
Yeah, so Unbreakable and Split, when they released, were uncorrelated movies until the final 10 minutes of Split just have a scene that just sets it in the same universe as Unbreakable, and then Glass was just M. Night being like, but what if they met?
But what if? And then for our final trilogy, we're doing something similar. We're doing the 3 movies that the Wachowskis wrote and directed after The Matrix, that being Speed Racer, or those being Speed Racer, Cloud Atlas, and Jupiter Ascending.
Yeah. So, like I said, pushing the boundaries of what a Triple Play episode can be, pushing the definition of a trilogy a little bit, Still keeping them thematically related. I mean, even the Cornetto Trilogy is not really a trilogy in the sense that there's overarching characters. It's just Edgar Wright being like, these movies are my 3 movies that I'll deal with the kind of same themes and have the same actors playing the lead roles, but not the same characters. So,
yeah.
And maybe one day we'll do the greatest trilogy of all time, the final trilogy we did before starting this podcast, which I don't know if I should reveal what it was because it's so like nonsensically insane.
No, it's great. We should need to save that for the most opportune time, which is not now.
Okay, we'll save it. We'll save it.
Got to keep something up our sleeves.
If we ever do that trilogy, that's how the audience will know we're really out of ideas. Yeah. And don't worry, we'll tell you it's that trilogy when we're doing it.
If you ever see us do a really wild trilogy that makes sense and that we don't try and even make sense of, that's going to be it. That would be like our, those things that are like, what's something you would post online and all of the people you interact with online would immediately know that it's a cry for help and that you're like kidnapped or something. That would be that for us.
Well, on that somber bombshell, we'll be back with Inevitable probably after this. So look out for that. And if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on any of the trilogies we watched this season, any of the trilogies we've outlined for next season, or any trilogies you'd like to suggest. Like I said, we're kind of pushing the definition, so if you've got ideas along the lines of what we've even presented for next season, let us know. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere else you find our podcasts, including Amazon at Triple Play. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be starting the next batch of trilogies. But until then, the end.